Okay, let's look at the first one, which is the carbon cycle. Carbon atom is the principal building block of many kinds of molecules which make up living organisms. It is a basic constituent of all organic compounds, including carbohydrates, lipids, proteins, and nucleic acid. This diagram shows the correlation between the carbon cycle and also the formation of organic compound. So in plants, we have carbon dioxide that is formed by carbon fixation when they join with water in photosynthesis to form organic compounds, which can then be further converted by plants and also animals. From the organic compound here, it can be transformed into carbon dioxide by plant, algae, and many bacteria. Humans and also animals, some certain fungi or bacteria use oxygen to produce carbon dioxide. So this is a cycle of matter, how the carbons are transformed between plants, animals, and humans. What you can see from here basically is that the carbon cycle is very essential for the existing and survival of life. Carbon cycle is the exchange of carbon among the biosphere, geosphere, hydrosphere, and atmosphere. It can be present as carbon dioxide, atmospheric carbon dioxide, dissolved in surface water and groundwater as hydrogen carbonate or molecular carbon dioxide. It can present in minerals as carbon carbonate or magnesium carbonate. It can exist in biological carbon. So this CH2O is formula for biological carbon. And then it also exists in petroleum and natural gas. For example, as hydrocarbons, kerogen. This is the organic matter in oil shell. And then we have coal and lignite and also xenobiotic compound. So xenobiotic compound is hydrocarbon with functional groups containing halogens, oxygen, nitrogen, phosphorus, and also sulfur. So this diagram shows the basic carbon cycles in our ecosystem. So we have here photosynthesis, which is the main carbon reaction, photosynthesis, and then the opposite of photosynthesis is respiration. And then we also combust from the fossil fuel. We burn carbon through the combustion to produce carbon dioxide. And we can also have decomposition of organism, which occurs in the soil. And then apart from that, we can also have processes like biodegradation and also precipitation. Okay, I will discuss each one of these. Photosynthesis, I think most of you know what is photosynthesis. Okay, so basically it's where plants take in carbon dioxide and water to produce carbon compounds and oxygen. Basically, the energy flows through the grazing food chain. So you have animals, small animals that eat the plant. So the carbon can passes from the plants to the animals. So it passes through the food chain. So from small animals, usually small animals are herbivores. They consume the carbon from the plant, and then the small animals are eaten up by larger animals. So these are carnivores. The carbon passes through from the plants to herbivore to carnivore. In the end, carnivorous animals or the herbivorous animal is what we call consumer. So this consumer, they use the carbon to build up carbohydrates and sugars, etc. For example, like glucose, ATP, and amino acids. So this is how the carbon can pass through to the food chain. You see that whatever we have carbon in our body does not being created, but is a cycle through the life system. And then the next process, which is the opposite of photosynthesis, is respiration. Here, what happened is that when the plant, they break down the process from the carbon dioxide, so they break down the carbon dioxide to produce oxygen. Now, human or animal consume the oxygen. Through respiration, they produce carbon dioxide. What happened is that Organic or biological carbon is then contained in energy-rich molecules that can react biochemically with molecule oxygen to regenerate carbon dioxide and produce energy. This process occurs in aerobic respiration. The next process is decomposition. Decomposition is a very, very slow process. This happens when we have organic carbon that are obtained from that organism is being transformed by biogeochemical process to hydrocarbons, such as fossil fuels and everything. So these material are slowly formed underground from the remains of plants and animals that died million years ago. This is the process what occurs. This process is basically very, very slow because when organisms they die, they decompose or break down their bodies, releasing carbon to the environment. And this process takes a million years. In the end, what we have is the production of fossil petroleum, kerosene, coal, or lignite. The next process is biodegradation. Here, microorganisms degrade organic carbon from biomass, petroleum, and xenobiotic sources, and ultimately returning it to the atmosphere as carbon dioxide. So hydrocarbons such as those in crude oil and some synthetic hydrocarbons are degraded by organisms. For example, these organisms are used or they are present naturally and that can be used to remove accidental oil spill in soil or water. So this technique of biodegradation, because of the process it undergoes, sometimes we generate this microorganism or we culture this microorganism for the use to destroy carbon containing compound in hazardous waste. Because it's naturally very effective, so we can culture them and to use it for environmental prevention. The process can be aerobic or anaerobic depending on the type of the microorganism. Okay, because some of the microorganisms, they love hydrocarbon. They love carbons. So they are very active in degrading this carbon-containing pollutant. Okay, next process is precipitation or rains. So carbon dioxide dissolves readily in water and is in direct equilibrium with dissolved inorganic forms of carbon such as carbonic acid, hydrogen carbonate ions, and also carbonate. So this is the reaction of carbon dioxide with water. And then once there, it may precipitate as calcium carbonate or known as limestone. Corals and algae encourage this reaction and buildup of limestone reef in the process. This involves the precipitation of carbon dioxide to limestone or calcium carbonate. So this process usually occurs in the ocean. And then we have the combustion. This one also is a general process where you consume oxygen to produce carbon dioxide. So during combustion, you consume organic carbon and also oxygen to produce carbon dioxide. So from here, if you have higher combustion, then the higher carbon dioxide will be produced that will contribute to the generation of global warming. So this is just a flow chart summarizing the process of carbon cycles. You have here, first is mineral in the reservoir as calcium carbonate or limestone, which depend on the acidity of the seawater. It can undergo dissolution where it can produce dissolved carbon dioxide. From the dissolved carbon dioxide, it can produce soluble inorganic carbon, and then finally through the chemical processes it will form carbon dioxide to the atmosphere. Carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, it can be fixed by photosynthesis where it can turn to fixed carbon, organic carbon, and xenobiotic carbon or oxygen. And then from there, this is photosynthesis is the opposite of respiration. So it's a reversible process. And then from the fixed organic carbon, It can undergo biogeochemical processes such as decomposition to produce fixed organic hydrocarbon. And then from the fixed organic hydrocarbon, this can be extracted as petroleum feedstock. From here, it can also undergo a combustion to produce carbon dioxide. And then the fixed organic carbon can undergo biodegradation by suitable microorganism to release also carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. So this is just summary of the important chemical species of carbon in our ecosystem. And then how can we human have an impact on the carbon cycle? First of all is by burning of fossil fuels. Human release the stored carbon. So stored carbon mean here is that the biological carbon that are compressed for over million years. So they are stored actually in our earth. So now when we burn fossil fuels, the carbon is released into the environment, especially to the atmosphere, which finally contribute to the global climate change. Next, we can also, what we impact the carbon cycle is through the deforestation. When we cut down trees, we have less plants to convert carbon dioxide to oxygen. So with less tree, then we will have less oxygen and increase of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. This graph shows the atmospheric concentration of carbon dioxide, which was measured between 1960 to 2009. This was measured actually in Hawaii. So you can see that from 1960 to 2009, the concentration of carbon dioxide is increased almost linearly. So basically what happened is that some of extra carbon dioxide that was produced by human activities can be taken up by plants or absorbed by the ocean, which is then converted to limestone. But this process is slow. They cannot counteract with the increase of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. So that is why the atmospheric carbon dioxide level has been rising and continue to rise. Increase of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, it can be taken up or dissolved in the ocean. But excess of dissolved carbon dioxide in the ocean can cause the water to be more acidic. When water react with carbon dioxide, they release H plus or carbonic acid. So acidic water can reduce carbonate concentration and make it harder for marine organisms to build and maintain their shells of calcium carbonate. So both increasing temperature and higher acidity can harm sea life and cause coral bleaching. So this is an example of what occurs to the coral. The white coral here shows that the coral is bleached because it's too acidic and the temperature is very high. But the one at the back here shows that the healthy coral, so they have brown in colors. So this is an example of what happened if we have too much carbon dioxide in the atmosphere.